right, thank you. This next question is from Cheryl Killam of Concord, New Hampshire. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990, yet 17 years later, widespread noncompliance persists. If elected, what steps would you take to ensure stronger enforcement of civil rights laws such as the ADA?
Well, let's talk about some practical aspects of this. You have these curbside carriers, the buses, that do not want to provide access, okay? I see this as being pretty easy, actually. Just suppose that we put an amendment in the transportation bill that said that any states who receive transportation funds must enforce the provisions of the ADA with respect to their carriers. So then you would make receipt of millions, tens of millions of dollars, and maybe more, contingent on the enforcement. See, that's one way you do it. And there's other things too that relate to the ADA. We need to make sure that if you're talking about public transportation, as we build our public transportation systems out, every public transportation system must affirm before they get any kind of support that they're complying, full compliance with the ADA. So I'd say you can, in all cases, improve compliance by tying the receipt of federal funds in specific places to the compliance with the ADA. And then the states will be happy to take up the enforcement. Some might say it's an unfunded mandate, but the fact of the matter is they wouldn't be getting the federal funds unless they were compliant. So I think that would work for everyone.
The next question is something that we'd all like to know, which is how can our community be more effective in getting our messages across to candidates for public office?
First of all, forums like this are very important. Having the opportunity throughout my career to reach out to people who are differently able, I think that it's first incumbent upon people who aspire to public office to come to you. I see groups here from the paralyzed veterans. We've had a very close relationship in Cleveland over the years. There are groups here who represent many different communities, and I've worked with those communities over the years. So it first starts with the work that the candidate must do, and if it's a lifetime of work, it's a lot better, because then when you look out at the audience, you understand the amazing abilities that are out here. You don't have to watch a Daniel Day-Lewis movie to understand that a person may be sitting in front of you who represents amazing abilities. So what I would urge you to do, first of all, take the initiative to contact a campaign. I'd be happy to have the help of the individuals in this room, in New Hampshire and any other state that you have influence in, to help move the cause of all Americans forward. How would you work in a campaign? Well, you can work in a campaign office. You can work in by phone, by texting messages. You can work in standing there and going door to door with literature. There's so many ways to participate, but it goes beyond that. Our government and a Kucinich administration would want to be home to people of many different abilities so that we can be an example to what's possible for the rest of the country. There are so many people who are waiting in this audience who are waiting to make a contribution to the nation in so many different ways, or to the community. But they need to know that there's a leader who sees the multidimensionality of people, who sees that we're more than our bodies, we're more than our eyes and our ears, that there's a human heart which has tremendous potential. And if you have a leader who can see the potential in every individual, that can translate into policies that call that potential forward. So for this campaign, I would ask you, if you want to be of assistance in any way, to either go down the street to a Kucinich headquarters, which is at at the street level and to visit, or to go on the web at Kucinich.us and to sign up, and to talk about the special abilities that you have in communicating with various constituencies. But I want everyone here to know that in whatever way you are differently abled, everyone here is able to be able to help make this a great country through your participation. And that's why, for me, to be here, it's just so wonderful. And before I close, I just want to add one word. Go ahead. Are we done now?
We have time for one more question, Congressman. And this is from John Richards. He says there are 5.3 million Americans living today who are disabled due to brain injury. As you know, the issues related to brain injury have received substantial media coverage and heightened awareness recently to the war in Iraq and the unfortunate number of injured soldiers. What thoughts or plans do you have in addressing these issues for civilians as well as the military?
Well, let's first talk about the military. This is a conference that deals with a specific constituency. But the truth of the matter is, those young men and women who are serving, who come home injured, some of them impaired for life with brain injuries, deserve a couple things. First of all, they deserve a leader who doesn't send our young people into these wars based on lies. I say we ought to bring up all of our troops home. That's number one. Number two, how cynical can you get? You say support the troops. Keep them there? I don't think so. Number three, it's interesting, we say support the troops, keep them there, but when they come home, they don't receive the support. We have so many troops who come home, they don't get the care that they need, they don't get mental health care. We saw the stories out of Walter Reed half a year ago, how people who were critically injured weren't getting the care that they needed, who had long-term injuries, weren't getting the care that they needed. So we need to care for our soldiers. This is what Lincoln said in his second inaugural. He said, care for those who had borne the battle. We need to care for them. We have to provide for long-term care. They were ready to put their lives on the line. We've got to put our resources on the line for our soldiers when they come back. Now let's talk about those who didn't go to war, who have brain injuries. This is a huge problem because often families can't afford it. You know, if you know any family where someone had a traumatic brain injury, that it will totally exhaust the family's financial resources. So this is where the system that I'm talking about, Medicare for All, H.R. 676, universal, single-payer, not-for-profit health care, totally changes everything because people then get the care they need. What does that care include? It also includes helping them to rebuild their lives. Now, my wife, who's here, she worked for 3 years with a brain-injured person who was in an accident. It wasn't no fault of his own. He was a ski instructor. He was a very intelligent man. And she provided assistance to him for 3 years. And that assistance wasn't just care in the house. She would take him out and go and visit. People who are brain injured should have a chance to have some kind of a life outside of where they're staying. And we need people who are paid to do that. And the bill that I'm talking about, the health care plan I'm talking about, provides for that kind of care. It gives people a choice. It helps people rescue a part of their lives. No one in America should ever be written off. No one in this country. We need to see that every person has something of God exists in every person. We need to respect that. We need to call forth whatever it is that resides in that person that responds to that spark of humanity, that spark of life. We need to elevate it. We need to lift it up. We need leaders who see that in people. And that's what I want to bring to the White House, and that's what I'm asking for your help in.